Lagos State, the governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, ably represented by Mr. Olalere Odusote, who is the Honourable Commissioner for Energy, Lagos. In fact, we're actually going to get some remarks from him right now. So please, round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try and be very brief so you can get back to the business of the day. I'm told that I'm a politician these days, and this is not a political gathering. Today is day 1,234, 1, 2, 3, 4 days since Mr. Governor took office in Lagos. Now, why do I know this? Because Mr. Governor said to us when we started, you must number your days. You have 1,461 days to make a difference. We have 227 days left to go. When we started, we had a session which was in the transition committee, which is to look at the programs of Lagos State, because he also made it clear, your job, or the jobs of the people who will come and take office with me, will be to hold their positions in trust and only to make lives easier for the businesses and the residents in Lagos. Now, this is like when you're in traffic and your lane is moving. You almost never realize that your lane is moving faster than the other lanes. However, if your lane is the one that's slow and everyone else is going ahead of you, you notice that your lane is slow and you start to wonder why your driver is in that lane, and if you're driving, how you can move to a lane that is moving. You always notice when there's an inconvenience and you don't notice when things are going well. So he said when people blame the government and complain a lot and don't give kudos when you've done something really good, understand that that's just the way human nature is. One of the things people complain a lot about is traffic in Lagos. Nobody remembers that Molues have disappeared in Lagos. I don't know if anybody was around who remembers those yellow buses and all the issues they had. Nobody remembers. But suddenly, everybody remembers when you have an encounter with LASMA. So please forgive them when you see them on the road. One of the things, or some of the things that happened when we started was some people had their jobs given to them. Some others were asked, what exactly is it that you can do? I am by the grace of God and the pleasure of the governor, I am the Honourable Commissioner, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Two things that people complained about on the campaign trail, the two biggest things was traffic management and electricity. So he said to me, what can you do about electricity? I said, well, electricity is a concurrent responsibility, but it's currently the purview of the federal government. Nobody has any laws that regulate electricity but the federal government. He said, well, what can you do? You've been there for a long time. I said, well, one of the things we can do is to separate the Lagos market from the rest of the country and then stabilize that market such that residents and businesses can thrive. And when I said that, everybody kept quiet because to them, what I was saying was not possible. But this is Lagos. If we're not audacious about our goals, we're in trouble. And I'll explain. Lagos receives 800,000 migrants on an annual basis. And that's inorganic growth. I'm not talking about the births that happen in Lagos to add to the population. Lagos is sitting on 0.4% of Nigeria's landmass. So Lagos, with 13% of Nigerians currently living on 0.4% of Nigeria's landmass, is a crowded city. And it's going to get more crowded. It's not going to change. And the question is why. Some people say Lagos is suffering from its successes. And the question is, why is Lagos successful? It's successful because everybody comes to Lagos because Lagos represents hope, at least in Nigeria. And we take that responsibility not very lightly. We take it very seriously. Every time we sit down to discuss what the opportunities are for us to make lives better for businesses and the residents of Lagos, it's a very difficult argument. We had, and we also understand what the future is. We had an economic summit yesterday and the day before yesterday where we sat down and spoke to people. Now, over the past 9 economic summits we've had in Lagos, we've had 222 resolutions come out of them. Lagos has implemented 95% of those resolutions. So we take it seriously. When we say we want to do something, we've been fortunate that we've had people who are committed to ensuring that we continue to work towards it. In terms of support for entrepreneurs, again, when I listen to what the people who've been part of Endeavor has said, I start to think to myself, should the government continue to do what it's doing, or should it actually look at partnering with people such as Endeavor to help them reach more people? Again, we can leverage what we have to work with them. The MD of Endeavor will tell you this. So far, Lagos has in the past 4 years spent 11 billion supporting about 11,000 MSMEs. We spent another 2.5 billion training about another 2,000 people. We placed 2,000 graduates in internship programs at the cost of Lagos State when we wanted to get the companies who said they needed new people on the cheap. Out of that 2,000 people, 1,750 of them were retained. So it was a good way of companies to employ labor on the cheap. Lagos State paid for those employees throughout the internship program, and then eventually they were recruited by the people who then kept the people they like. That's an 87.5% success rate, which is not bad, meaning we took our time to recruit the right kinds of people for the right kinds of jobs. In terms of the tech space, what have we done? We created a hub in Yaba. In that hub so far, we've given vouchers to about 130 entrepreneurs who wanted access to equipment and infrastructure to be able to build their dreams. We've funded, I think, about another 2,000 hubs, 2,000 entrepreneurs and MSMEs who say that they have interest in setting up IT infrastructure. But are we doing as well as we can? Are we leveraging the amount of capital that's out there? I say this because somebody was asking a question about, somebody made a statement about how much the government had versus the GDP of the state. I can tell you that. Lagos State's budget for 2022 was 2.5 billion. That's the amount of goods and services Lagos State can buy in the year. If you compare that to the GDP of Lagos, which is about 80 billion, then you know that what the government can do is only a drop in the bucket compared to what the private sector can do. So what we try and do as much as possible is to leverage the private sector to improve the lives of the people and businesses in Lagos. And that's why we're looking seriously at the IT space and looking at potentially working with the people who are in that space to create a tech hub in Lekki, in the Lekki Free Zone. I had a meeting with Kasi Cloud about 3 weeks ago where they talked about their need for 60 megawatts of electricity. 60 megawatts is a lot of electricity. What do you need 60 megawatts for? In one small area. But by the time I looked at their business, it suddenly occurred to me that this is the next step for Lagos. We've got all the infrastructure. We can create all the infrastructure we need to support the tech space in Lagos and become the tech capital of Nigeria. We already are. We're already the startup capital of Africa. We've surpassed Cape Town and Nairobi 2 years ago, and we're still number one today because we're continuing to deliberately focus on Lagosians who want to contribute, and we're supporting them in every way we can. I went back to where I started from, which is the energy sector. People were surprised when we went to Abuja just to go and watch the Senate votes, not only to look at the Constitution, but also to remove the to remove the inconsistency that didn't allow the states to be able to create their markets. And suddenly it started to look like it was possible. We had several discussions with them. Now the Senate has passed their version of the amendment of the power law that recognizes the rights of the states to create their own markets. We're working with the House of Reps to also pass the same thing and actually go further and introduce a transitionary provision. Lagos State has published its own energy policy. Lagos State has also approved in EXCO their own law that says that we will create the market and create the regulators, such that if you want to then participate in the market today to build infrastructure to support the enterprises in Lagos, you don't have to go to Abuja to ask for permits. You just stay in Lagos and get everything done. I did say that I wouldn't take too much time. It's just to say that we're open, we're always listening, we're ready to help with the infrastructure that's necessary. We also recognize the strengths that the private sector brings to the table, and we will work with you to ensure that your dreams, whatever they are fulfilled in Lagos, and you will not, again, have to japa. So let me finally, Mr. Governor sends his deepest regrets. At the Engbeti Summit, the only fireside chat that he had there was to sit with young entrepreneurs. It was people under 30. He wanted to listen to them, ask them questions about what their concerns are and how well they could advise their other colleagues or the other young people in the audience to look at Lagos and what they can benefit from it. He asked about the challenges that they had, and they spoke very well about it. So for him, speaking with young entrepreneurs was something he would have loved to do. So he called and said I should please try as much as possible to represent him well here. I would ask you, if anybody were to ask you, can you kindly just say that I did? All right, so thank you very much. I'll exit the stage now.
All right, the Honourable Commissioner for Energy in Lagos, Mr. Olalere Odusote. Thank you so much.